Good evening, guys. And Jen, what's going on?
My world is a shit show. That's what's going on. So I right now apparently don't, like, I see myself in the camera, but for some reason it's not reading it. So Jason, of course, is telling me to reboot. So I'm going to try that, but that'll take me away for a few minutes. So I'm just letting you know. Okay? All
right, go to it. I'm bringing in Donziger in a minute.
All right.
So it's just me, guys, and a good evening to you all. It is Monday night. It is generational change. I am not flying solo, but we are about to get started. So it's going to be just a minute. I am going to send Mr. Donziger his link again. And here we go. 1 sec. And Colin, I'm CCing you on this just in case there's any issue. I doubt there will be, but let's make sure that that doesn't happen. Generation change. Okay. Just resent. Okay. So I hope you guys are all doing great this evening. No, Jen will be back, Henry. 1 second. So make sure you guys have smashed that like button. Yes. Well, I'm trying to juggle like 1,000 things right now, Dieter. So forgive me. Crystal, Jimmy, Henry, Hector. Hope you guys are all doing well. Remember to smash that like button if you haven't done it already. Let's get this out there to as many people as possible. And Mr. Donziger will be along in a minute. Jen is rebooting her computer. And I'm the only one without any technical difficulties for some reason. But as you all know, and time is, of course, of the essence, so we don't have any time to waste. The president has been on what you would consider somewhat of a rampage as of late, handing out pardons like hotcakes. Well, we're not going to really get into the minutiae of the people that he has been pardoning. We're going to get into who he should be pardoning. And there is not a lot of time left. So to say that we want to put as much onus on the president as possible to continue to spread the word for somebody that has been a guest of our show multiple times, and we're very grateful anytime that he does come on, because he is a personal hero of ours, because he did put himself in harm's way for the sake of protecting our environment against one of the most powerful mega corporations in the world, which of course is Chevron. And so he is seeking a pardon. We are hoping to push forward that pardon. Steven Donziger, welcome back to Generational Change. Steven Donziger, welcome back to Generational Change. And it looks like we got us. So there's an audio feedback. There's an audio feedback. Colin, can you help with that real quick?
Just make sure. Go to your settings at the bottom. There's a settings button, and just make sure the speaker and mic are the correct options for under audio.
MacBook Air microphone. Should I put reduce mic background noise?
Yeah, and echo cancellation as well.
Okay, that's all. That's all on. How do I sound now?
You sound great. Okay. But we're the ones getting.
We're getting like audio feedback. If you have a set of headphones, just any cheap plug-in ones, that would fix the issue as well.
Listen, man, I don't, because I'm really a tech kind of primitive, so I do not have audio headphones. Although obviously I should get them. Can you?
Okay. So what I'll do is I'll just manually mute. Just try not to talk over each other, and I'll just.
So good evening. It is great to see you. Obviously, this is a very trying time because we do not have a lot of time left. It's only a few more weeks, and we know that come Friday, basically everybody takes off for 2 weeks, and then we're really up against it leading into January 20th. Where do things currently stand right now? Because it's obviously great to see the activity that is happening both on Capitol Hill as well as across all of the entire populist spectrum in politics. It's not just a left thing. There really does seem to be a great deal of emphasis. And when you consider the people that Biden has been pardoning, it would be completely hypocritical for them not to take this seriously in this moment. How are you feeling at this time? And what can we do to further facilitate helping you get this pardon that you so rightfully deserve?
Well, thank you. It's really a wonderful thing to say. I'm hopeful. And I want to just tell your listeners real quickly, the reason I'm seeking a pardon is because I was falsely convicted of a misdemeanor contempt of court charge in a prosecution not pursued by the U.S. government, but pursued by a private corporation, in this case, an oil company called Chevron. And they were able to do this in retaliation for the fact that I had helped Amazon communities in Ecuador win a landmark $10 billion pollution judgment that they don't want to pay. So rather than pay the people they poisoned in Ecuador, they dumped billions of gallons of cancer-causing oil waste into the rainforest. They then sued me and manipulated the legal system to have me locked up for almost 3 years in my home and in prison. This went on from 2019 to 2022. And the legal pretext for this was they got a judge to find me guilty, criminally guilty of contempt of court. But what was so interesting about this, because I wouldn't turn my computer over to Chevron lawyers, which is an unheard of kind of order to issue to a lawyer. So what was so unusual about this is the judge who charged me with criminal contempt of court, Louis A. Kaplan, took his charges to the U.S. attorney at the time in Manhattan, who was a Trump-appointed prosecutor named Jeffrey Berman, who rejected the charges and refused to prosecute me. At which point Kaplan appointed a private corporate law firm with Chevron as a client, that is the company that I had won this civil judgment against over their pollution in the Amazon, to prosecute me directly, and they had me jailed. And I was in my apartment in home detention with an ankle bracelet for 2 years and 2 months on a misdemeanor with a maximum sentence of 6 months. In other words, before I could even get a trial, I had served 4 times the max sentence in my apartment. This was a persecution. It was a corporate persecution. I'm the only person in U.S. history to be targeted by a private corporate criminal prosecution ever. Okay. So I've asked the president to deal with this. Okay. I have a lot of support, 68 Nobel laureates, 3 federal judges have found my case to be unconstitutional, although the conviction was never actually technically reversed. In addition, the United Nations Working Group on Arbitrary Detention found that my detention violated international law. 5 international jurists found that. And right now, the United States government needs to fix this problem. The courts have turned their back on me. My court of last resort is President Biden. Okay, we know he pardoned his son, Hunter, who was convicted in a jury trial. Okay. And by the way, no comment on that. I get it. Okay. Father pardoned son. But he's got to also pardon others, me included, who represent the serious flaws that are taking place now in the United States justice system. I'm not the only one, but my case is a different kind of animal because I'm the only one who was essentially jailed by a private corporation. So we're asking the president to fix this problem, not only to protect me and my family, not only to enable me to work again as a lawyer, not only to enable me to get my passport back so I can leave the country. I haven't left the country in 5 years. Chevron has essentially severed me from my clients in Ecuador, so the case can't go forward, but also to send a clear message to our society that private corporate prosecutions will never again be allowed to hit anybody. And trust me, this is part of the new fossil fuel industry playbook. They want to be able to go after their critics directly by capturing elements of our federal judiciary. Our judiciary is supposed to be independent. It's supposed to protect people who are attacked by corporations, not be the instrument of the corporation to attack the individual, which is what happened to me. So we're hopeful. as you know, I have a lot of support. 34 congresspersons just wrote a letter to President Biden urging him to pardon me. It went out last Wednesday. On that letter, I think, are some really luminaries: AOC, Bernie Sanders, Sheldon Whitehouse, Jamie Raskin, Jim McGovern, Cory Bush, Ted Lieu, people really from all parts of the Democratic Party are on this letter. And, I'm really proud that probably the two smartest lawyers in the Congress, Jamie Raskin and Sheldon Whitehouse, are also on the letter. So we're hoping President Biden will, take this seriously and do the right thing and pardon me.
Yeah. Can you hear me? I get like such a mess. Such a mess.
Go ahead. You're good, Jen.
Okay. So thank you so much for sharing the story. I mean, I know it's been a while since we've talked about that. The question I have is, do we think that there's whatever the corporate ties are that would link Chevron to Joe Biden or Joe Biden to this judge or all of these people that are in that sort of club? And that's where it's like, it isn't so much that I find it disgusting that he said he wouldn't pardon his son and did, because he pardoned his son, whatever. Okay. But is he going to pardon anybody that has crossed Capitol? Is he going to pardon anybody that has really spoke out against the oligarchy? And that's what remains to be seen, because that's so far what we haven't seen happen.
The question, that is a great question. And I'm really hoping that President Biden will step up in his last 35 days and deal with some of the tougher cases. I mean, just so you know, he pardoned 39 people last week, but he commuted the sentences of another 1,500. You take the 1,500 out of the equation because they were not pardoned. They were just able to end their sentences because they fit into a certain category of COVID-related inmates who had been sent home because they were older. I actually was in that category when I was in prison. So I get that. Those 1,500 can stay home. They don't have to go back to prison. What about the 39? Well, the DOJ, Department of Justice, got 12,000 pardon applications. So how did they choose these 39? Like, what was the criteria? And one thing I noticed, because I studied this very carefully, is each one of the 39 had ended their very short sentences, because they were all convicted of nonviolent crimes, often years or even decades ago. There was a 79-year-old man who got pardoned for a crime he committed when he was 20. Okay? These are really safe, easy moves by the president. It felt a little bit like a public relations thing, right? Because he caught so much flack for pardoning his son. He needed to show he was pardoning other people. So the DOJ sent him these 39 people. I think he just approved it. But like, the White House counsel needs to grapple with cases like mine, like Leonard Peltier, like Julian Assange, like Edward Snowden, like Jennifer Resnicek, who was designated a terrorist for engaging in a peaceful act of nonviolent civil disobedience to block a pipeline. She's serving 8 years in federal prison. What about her? Commute her sentence. So there's a lot of cases. I mean, because of my situation and just because of my intellectual interest, like, I've really looked at this. There are a lot of political prisoners in this country, okay? President Biden needs to deal with these cases. I mean, Leonard Peltier, my God, he's been in prison 50 years. He's about to die in a case where he was convicted of shooting FBI agents that is highly questionable. The evidence is really weak. A lot of people believed he was framed, and I mean credible people, including an ex-federal judge who's representing him, Kevin Sharp. Okay, what about Leonard? Like, even if he did it, does he still, after 50 years, need to be stuck in solitary confinement with his
They asked for compassionate release for him. I mean, like, this is crazy already. Like, this is one of those things where it's so over the top extra as a matter of principle, because somebody got embarrassed. Somebody somewhere, they pissed it, because it isn't obviously crime appropriate. So it's a matter of who got pissed off, because it's ridiculous with Leonard Peltier.
FBI.
Wait, unmute.
Oh, I'm sorry. In this case, it's the FBI. I mean, they this is like a mission, a crusade. at the highest levels of the FBI down to the lowest levels of just, we're going to get this guy and he's going to die in prison. That's what they want. But like, where's the courage of a president? I mean, I go back to President Clinton, President Obama, now President Biden. Does anyone have the courage to pardon Leonard Peltier? Come on, okay? Pardon him, okay? And in my case, and obviously I have suffered to a degree, but nothing compared to him. Okay, I was in prison 6 weeks. He's been there 50 years. Yeah. I was in detention in this house for almost 3 years, where I am right now. And my case is bizarro because like I was the only one prosecuted by a private corporation, and there's like really broad reasons that he needs to pardon me. Okay, to basically send a message to corporate America that you can't prosecute people. But when you ask like, these cases are people who really confront the power structure in a deeper kind of way. The test for the president, the test for his legacy is, will he address these cases? The 39 were easy. By the way, I'm happy they got a pardon. He needs to pardon hundreds of those people, okay? But look at the 50 to 100 cases of people who really have suffered deep injustice, whose cases have symbolic meaning, have broader meaning than just mercy cases, okay? I'm not seeking mercy, okay? I'm seeking a pardon because I deserve a pardon because I'm innocent. And this case was baseless. I was prosecuted by a company, okay? I'm not seeking charity. I'm not seeking mercy, okay? I'm seeking a pardon because I need to work. I need to return to my job as a human rights lawyer to help people, including the Amazon communities in Ecuador who are literally dying at the hands of Chevron's poison. Okay, pardon me. And you know what? Send a message to Chevron and to corporate America that you can't do this anymore. I mean, this would be really powerful. I'm hopeful. Look, I don't think President Biden or his advisors are going to look at this neutrally. They're going to have to be pushed. Okay, that's why we have a campaign. That's why Jim McGovern, the congressman who is an old colleague of mine from decades ago, love the guy. He's the only elected member of Congress ever to visit Chevron's cancer zone in Ecuador. Okay, he organized a letter that these 34 people signed on to. I don't know. I've never seen a pardon letter with so many names on it. It moved me to tears to see all those signatures. My God. Okay, so I'm asking President Biden, you don't need to like me. You don't need to like environmental justice lawyers to pardon me, but you do need to respect the rule of law. You do need to uphold the rule of law, and you do need to send a message that this kind of corporate criminal prosecution can never happen again in this country. And I need to get back to work. I need to help my clients. I need to fight for human rights, and I need to support my family. I mean, I rely to live off of people donating to my defense fund. I mean, I still can't get a job. I don't have a bank account. Chevron took all my money. That is the point.
That's the point. The point is you sidelined.
Steve, one last question before you go, or one last point before you go, because I know time is limited, and Lord knows you have a lot of people who want your attention right now. We want to get you out there to as many people as possible that can help make this a reality. You look at what just happened, obviously, a couple of weeks ago, right in your backyard. You are a New York City resident. We see that something like Luigi Mangione happens as a result of just this constant ignorance of the powers that be, that think that they can continue to push people down and step on their neck with a boot. And there's just never going to be a response from the masses. I wonder, from your perspective as somebody who has been beaten down by this broken system, do you understand the rage that is brewing from the working class of this country right now? Because it seems like your story is one of many that has ultimately led up to Luigi Mangione. And if there isn't a significant sea change in what's going on right now, it likely won't be the last one either.
I just want to say that the private prosecution of me by Chevron and my jailing could not have happened in an environment where corporations and the oligarchs of this country hadn't consolidated major power and control. And that's what we've seen consistently, really, I would argue, and I've been doing this work for a long time, look, we've always been a capitalist society where the elites have control. But I'm just telling you, starting in the late 70s, early 80s, and this has been really well documented, by the way, in a book called The Scheme by Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, the Koch brothers and the right-wing funders decided to essentially take over our government. And I'm not saying the president or the Congress, I'm also talking about the courts. And they had a systematic plan for decades that has culminated in our Supreme Court being controlled by extremist, ultra-conservative elements, and these unelected 6 people are making decisions about how the rest of us 330 million people can live. Okay, that's the reality of America, and that's not democracy as democracy is commonly understood. So I don't think what happened to me could have happened without this systematic campaign quietly that essentially took over all 3 branches, or large components of all 3 branches of our government. Now, I'm not saying they have total control. They don't. We have a lot of control. We have a lot of power. We have the numbers. We have to organize, and we have to really understand the spaces out there in the legal system and in the Congress and in our government that we can utilize to advance a progressive agenda. So, the rage people feel is real. The fact that the Democratic Party, evidenced by the campaign that we just witnessed, is essentially about where Ronald Reagan was in 1980. I mean, the Democratic Party has become a center-right party, a corporatist party, and the 2 choices in the United States now, or the main choices, are between a center-right party and an authoritarian, even fascist party. So that's not a real choice. So the rage people feel, and obviously I do not condone violence or this kind of killing that Luigi did, but the rage people feel because of the abuse that is visited upon us by the healthcare system, by the privatized healthcare system, by this particular company is real. And, if the establishment in this country doesn't deal with it, if we don't establish a political party that truly represents the working class, represents labor, a labor party, why don't we have a labor party in the United States? Then this is only going to fester, and I fear it's going to become worse. And we'll see over the next 4 years. We either organize and fight for a better world with a true vision, which we did not see from the Democratic Party or from Kamala Harris in this last election, or we are going to cede power to the most right-wing elements of the Republican Party. So we have to be really careful. This is a pivotal moment in history. Look, my pardon is kind of not that significant compared to the larger stakes going on in our world right now, but it is achievable and it is important. And by the way, if people want to help me, if I can, we have a campaign website called freedonziger.com. DONZIGER. Go to the website. You can, I know this sounds hokey, but you can sign our petition. You can donate money to our campaign. And the thing that we find to be most effective is call the damn White House. Okay. The number is 202-456-1111. Write it down. Call until an operator gets on and raise some respectful hell and tell them to tell President Biden that I must be pardoned and private corporate prosecutions can never happen again in the United States of America.
Thank you for all you do. Thank you for standing up for what is right. And even in the face of great injustice, you continue to fight. Jen and I will always be in your corner, as will millions of others. We hope in the next month, because it's literally it's 5 weeks. It's going to be here before you know it. And like I said, starting this Friday, basically everybody takes off for the following 2 weeks. So time really is of the essence. We will do everything we can to help you. Guys, make sure you go to that website. Stephen, happy holidays. God bless. And we'll be talking to you again real soon.
Love to you guys. I love what you do. I love independent journalism. Keep up the great work. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Stephen.
Appreciate you. A great man in a very tough time, to say the least. But guys, make sure that you get over to that website, freedonziger.com. What can you say? He's just an amazing person who is going through literal hell. Look, I I've been to his apartment once before. It's typical New York City. It's in a nice neighborhood, but it's a small place, like almost everybody else who isn't rich is going to have to live in when they're in that city. And think about what home confinement is like. I mean, home confinement doesn't necessarily, and nowadays, that isn't necessarily unappealing to some people, but I can't imagine doing the right thing and having your freedom taken from you. And that's the scary part. And I think that was the tie-in in many ways to what was going on related to how Mangione got to the point that he got to. And there is one clip that I would like to play because obviously time was of the essence with Steve. We wanted to make sure we had all the time to speak with him. But Jen, this is a clip that was put out on MSNBC earlier today.
Is best known for securing an historic $9.5 billion settlement against oil giant Chevron on behalf of Ecuador's indigenous people. They said that the oil giant dumped toxic waste into their lands. And the case helped expose a history of poisoned soil, toxic waste, and villages ravaged by cancer. It became known as the Amazon Chernobyl. Chevron never paid the judgment, though. Instead, it waged a legal campaign to discredit Donziger, including filing a civil suit accusing him of violating racketeering laws. Ultimately, a judge ruled in Chevron's favor, and Donziger was convicted in 2021 of a misdemeanor contempt of court charge. 68 Nobel laureates and a group of human rights organizations have denounced Donziger's contempt conviction. His allies, including environmental groups like Greenpeace, warn that the conviction sets a dangerous precedent and could have a chilling effect on the broader environmental justice movement. This week's historic clemency announcement comes after Biden faced criticism for issuing a sweeping pardon to his son, Hunter Biden, who was convicted earlier this year of gun and tax crimes. Biden has previously issued categorical pardons for some individuals convicted under federal marijuana laws, as well as LGBTQ+ service members who were discharged because of their sexual orientation. But advocates, including my next guest, are urging the president to do more. For his part, Biden says he will continue reviewing clemency petitions during his final weeks in office. Joining me now to discuss the push for pardons is Democratic Congressman Jim McGovern, who is behind the congressional effort to get Donziger pardoned. Representative McGovern is the top Democrat on the House Rules Committee. So last week, you, along with more than 30 other members of Congress, pushed President Biden to pardon Steven Donziger. Why did this particular individual make it to the top of your list?
Well, because I traveled to Ecuador in 2008, and I saw firsthand the mess that Chevron left behind. It's unconscionable. And I was ashamed, quite frankly, that this was a U.S. corporation that committed this terrible human rights crime, because it is a human rights crime, and they've done nothing to try to remedy it. And so, I followed Donziger's, attempt to get to win a judgment on behalf of the people of Ecuador. He won. And then I was shocked at the retribution that followed from Chevron. Rather than respecting the judgment, rather than investing in cleanup and helping these poor people in Ecuador, Chevron went after Steven Donziger in an unprecedented way. And I think it was a terrible injustice. And look, this is like a David and Goliath story. And Chevron, used its corporate wealth and its legal connections to target Steven Donziger and to ignore the contamination it left behind in Ecuador.
Well, let's talk about how they actually targeted Donziger, because it's somewhat unusual here. As you know, the pardon power is only available to deal with criminal matters, federal criminal matters. Here, though, Chevron brought a private civil lawsuit against Donziger, but he was then subsequently convicted of misdemeanor contempt of court charges. How typical is that? That's actually the federal crime for which he's been convicted.
Yeah, I don't think it's typical at all. I'm not a legal expert, but it's highly unusual. And it shows the extent that Chevron was willing to go to try to basically avoid paying the judgment that a court decided it owed the people of Ecuador. Again, I mean, he was almost 3 years under house arrest, spent some time in jail, was disbarred, and his passport was confiscated. Chevron bullied him and got away with it, and had a corporate-friendly judge that most legal experts say behaved in a way that was probably unconstitutional.
Unbelievable. And kudos to Congressman McGovern for putting himself out there on behalf of Steven. Look, we are going to continue to push to ensure that Donziger gets his pardon. I'm not holding my breath. I'm just being honest.
No, I'm not either. Look, he's being personally punished. And that's what makes it so particular, as is Julian Assange. Like, these are people that are being personally punished by particular people. That's the thing. So I don't want to be like a Debbie Downer about that, but I'm not optimistic.
No, I'm not. But that doesn't mean we're not going to fight.
No,
it's not about that. It's more about. It is much more about Biden and his administration and what they stand for. You don't ever want to assume that they're just doing it to stand on ceremony, but who knows in the world of politics these days? That's really what it comes down to. I never want to assume the worst, but he's been through hell and back. There's no two ways about it.
All right, I'm going to try to go get on in the studio. I think I fixed the problem. Okay.
Okay, so then I have to entertain the crowd for a few minutes.
Just for a minute. I'm just going to do my best. I'd rather be in the studio than standing here. I feel like I look like white Jesus, and we don't need that. So
people said that you have like an aura about you right now. So there's that. It's just working. Okay, so I'll see you in the studio, I guess.
I'm hoping. I'm hopeful.
Okay. So we'll see if Jen is able to successfully navigate into the studio. And Rothbone was here for a second and then he bounced, but hopefully he'll be coming back in a minute. Hope you guys enjoyed that interview. I know we started earlier than normal, but that's what you got to do. Sometimes you just have to accommodate. That's par for the course. And, Steven has been a guest on our podcast multiple times. Hopefully he'll be back again. Hopefully the next time we have him back, it will be because he did have a pardon. That's what we're hoping for. That's what we're fighting for. And I know that it's, like I said, it may be wishful thinking because of the system we're in right now. And it also speaks to the corporate special interests that are just kind of doubling down on this broken system. They are doubling down on this broken system. And so we don't know for certain how it's going to unfold. But this is where we're at. And so, Jen, if you could take over, because I'm going to try to get in touch with Rothbone, make sure that there wasn't an issue with the connection.
Okay. All right. There was something that happened when I left.
No.
Okay. So did you say who we're going to be speaking with? Why don't we play a couple of the clips? Why don't we play the clips?
Yes. Well, this is how we came to know about Rothbone in the first place. He apparently,
and people originally, I think other people thought it too. Like, I thought it was Zach Galifianakis.
I did too.
And then I'm like, why is Zach Galifianakis doing these kinds of, I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool. It just seemed kind of strange. But so, yeah, why don't we play those to give people a little intro into our next guest.
So this is how we came across Rothbone in the first place. This is one of the more viral clips that I saw, that we both saw on TikTok at the time. And this was in November of 2023. Amazing that this is still going on.
Palestinian people deserve human rights. Well, can you tell me why Hamas leaders are all billionaires living in high-rises in Qatar? The Palestinian people deserve human rights. You say that, and yet if you went into Gaza, your head would literally get chopped off. The Palestinian people deserve human rights. Well, can you tell me why Hamas doesn't accept the LGBTQ community? The Palestinian people deserve human rights. Well, maybe they should stop being so violent and ask a little bit nicer. Ever thought about that, Mr. Pro-Terrorism? The Palestinian people deserve human rights. Yeah, but the Palestinian people deserve human rights. Look, it's not that simple. The Palestinian people, it's like their fault. The Palestinian people deserve human rights. Yeah, but in 3000 BC, Palestinian people deserve human rights. You have to go back to the age of Hadrian, okay? You have to decipher the hieroglyphics in the Merneptah stele circa 1200 BC. Palestinian people deserve human rights.
Yeah. It does seem that but when I first saw that was already like a year ago. But like, I remember thinking that it is so ridiculous that that's actually what it's like.
Yeah,
like that it's just ridiculous.
And yet a year later, we're still dealing with this bullshit. And with that said, for the first time and hopefully not the last time, Rothbone, welcome to Generational Change.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. So I have to ask you, did other people think you were Zach Galifianakis?
Oh, I get that nearly every day.
Okay. So
Yeah.
it isn't. I'm not like, all right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So where did you like come from in doing this? Were you, like, I don't know anything about you other than the guy who looks like Zach Galifianakis that does really good videos.
That's fair. I'm, a music teacher for many years and a musician as well. And before I started like talking about politics, I was making music that was political, and I just went into a phase of like, I just made a TikTok page and I started talking about politics, and it started to get engagement. And that was like the first time I ever had any success with social media. So then October 7th happened, and it sort of, fit in with my values and my principles. I thought, it was because I've always talked about anti-imperialism, and I've always been very critical of U.S. foreign policy, especially, and domestic policy. And it just became, something. I actually didn't really know that much about Israel, Palestine, other than I knew it was a settler colony. I didn't know any of the details, so I felt like, wow, this seems to be like a really important thing that's happening, and I should really learn about it. So I picked up Norman Finkelstein's book on Gaza, and I was just floored. I mean, the first 3 pages that I read of it, I was just appalled, and I learned so much, just in his book than anything that I had learned, predictably from like corporate media. But I wanted to take what I could do, which is communicate these ideas in a political satirical format, and try to teach Americans around me, because I feel like, I come from a culture that's just like really ignorant about the rest of the world. And
Where are you?
I know these people, so I've went to school with them, I've grown up with them, so I know how they think, and I just feel like I could use my powers for good, so to speak. So that's kind of what I've been trying to do.
Where are you? I'm sorry. Where are you located?
I'm originally from New Orleans. I actually just moved out to Los Angeles a couple weeks ago, really. Not even a month, I don't think.
Interesting.
That's funny. I'm actually over in Niceville, if you happen to know where that town is, in the panhandle of Florida.
Oh, okay.
So
Niceville.
Yes,
It's called
not a joke. It's
Niceville?
really called Niceville, and it's a nice town. And so basically, you hop on I-10 and you just go straight across, and it's like.
Okay, all right. Yeah, the Panhandle. That's really close. To New Orleans, where I'm from. So.
Well,
Yeah.
what we call it here is Floribama. That's the nickname.
Floribama. Yeah, of course. I know Floribama very well.
You don't have the accent. You don't have that. You don't, because you say you didn't say Nolans.
No,
like you sound like just like normal.
Yeah, I've been told that too. But if you get around, like if I get around my family, I'll start picking it back up.
Right.
And my dad especially. But I didn't really. I don't know. I didn't really I didn't really pick it up like my parents did, I guess.
Yeah. So I just want, like, the way that you do your videos, like the way you do it, it's in such a way that it's so not like the people who would be offended can't really be offended, because it's like you're being called out by being offended by this, and it's very tame and yet very, very good. So that's what's really cool, because I think in doing it in that way, when it's not so obviously like in your face,
right,
that's how you don't end up getting shadow banned. That's how you don't end up getting like, all those things, but yet you could still make the point. Like I think it's really good.
Well, I appreciate that. And, people, there's a whole spectrum of how people feel about it. I mean, I get a lot of comments one way or the other, but Yeah, I think satire is a useful tool, to really get people to think and put the ideas out effectively into people's minds. So,
have you been called anti-Semite yet?
oh my goodness, yes.
Okay, good. Welcome.
Welcome to the club.
Join the club. Yeah, right. I was actually, I'm upset that I didn't even make the top 10 from the,
I'm annoyed about that Candace Owens thing.
Candace worked really hard for that award, man. I mean,
yeah.
she really did.
I don't understand it. I can't believe it. Who was in contention? Was Norman Finkelstein? Was Abby Martin? Like, there's some really good picks.
Yeah.
You got Ta-Nehisi Coates. Like, there's some other people in the mix here.
They left out a lot of good people. And yeah,
I know.
I was one of them. Okay. I was offended.
I feel like that too, right? Like a little bit. I feel like Candace Owens gets anti-Semite of the year. I was like, that's just so wrong. She's never been on the right team until now. Like, she's just such a Johnny come lately to like anything resembling the right side
honestly,
of anything.
I think the only reason why Owens is where she is at this point is because there probably was a conversation with her and Ben Shapiro, and she, as a black woman, finally remembered that she was a black woman in Ben Shapiro's presence, and he probably laced it in such a bigoted way that even she couldn't defend it. It's like, oh God, this guy's fucking crazy. Right. And he is crazy. Like, Ben Shapiro was one of the absolute worst scum suckers in the entire independent media.
Are you suggesting that
I'm an anti-Semite, so I could say whatever I want.
I'm a self-loathing Jew. Yeah. But are you suggesting that Zios are bigots?
Just a little bit. Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. And there's quite the cross. Now that's what I call intersectionality.
That's it. And an understatement too. Just a little bit of a bigot.
What's your experience with that? Like, I grew up in South Florida in Jewville. I mean, I grew up thinking everybody was basically Jewish. That was just how it was. And it was very pro-Israel. And so I grew up with that. Yeah. And so my story is kind of different than a lot of people. Like, New Orleans, although there's definitely New Orleans Jews. I know some.
Absolutely. But I think New Orleans is primarily, oddly enough, even though it's deep in the heart of Southland, it's Catholic, and I grew up Catholic. Right. I take the George Carlin joke, which is I was Catholic until I reached the age of reason around 7 or 8.
Right.
Because I never could understand. I mean, my dad was very much like had to bring us to church every Sunday, and it rubbed me the wrong way, and I sort of didn't really care too much for religion. But not that and I have to remind people, it doesn't nobody cares about religion. I mean, nobody cares about your religion. We care about ethnic cleansing. People care about religion. I'm not saying that people don't care about religion. I'm just saying when it comes to this, like, to make this whole thing, this whole genocide about religion is it's disingenuous, and it's a lie. So, I mean, to switch the conversation to be about that, I always try to bring it back. It's like nothing to do with all this ideology.
It's fundamentally extremely anti-Semitic, actually.
Absolutely.
This concept, because it's inextricably like wanting to link Judaism with this, white settler colony project. Yeah. And it's very intentional. And it's a place where the secular white, like, imperialist Jews, I mean, they're Jews, but they're secular, they don't really care, basically merge together with Christian evangelicals and other forms of anti-Semites who they would otherwise hate, because they both support the same thing. And yet that doesn't give them pause. But then there's no problem for those people who affiliate with someone like John Hagee and other complete anti-Semites. And those people are okay. But we're the anti-Semites. So it's just very, I find the whole thing of like their whole mindset to be, and it's very anti-Jewish.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Jen has brought up time and again that the experience of how I would say indoctrinating the Zionist movement is, particularly in South Florida and in New York City, Brooklyn in particular, is a lot different than the West Coast. What's been your experience? Because obviously Los Angeles is one of the biggest Jewish populations in the country. What has been sort of the fervor on the ground there? Do you get the sense that there is an understanding of what's really going on right now, or do you get the sense that you're kind of amongst a lot of Zionists as well?
And I just got here, and it's not like I've been going out on the town, getting the pulse of everyone here. But there's a Palestinian flag flying right outside, like in the building next door, like it's big, and I would like to think so. Okay, I would like to think that the conversation has, the people here that are getting it. But as far as like personal interactions, I mean, unfortunately, I think that there probably is still a strong Zionist element in all of the United States. I mean, I was in Miami recently, and they are very much pro-Zionism, and it's like Zionism central, just a little bit.
Yeah.
But I don't see that, I guess, and maybe it's because of the sprawl here, and I'm just downtown, and but it's not like I'm living in Hollywood or any like pro-Zionist communities, I guess. But I think it's not so. In Miami, you could definitely feel it, and here I don't think I feel it as much.
Yeah, I'm suffocated by it. I'm suffocated by it. Oh my God, my Pilates studio. I play what I call it psychological warfare. So this shit started going down with the Israelis at my Pilates studio with me because they saw that I went to the march over a year ago. And I don't know, like, these are not people that I even know. They just saw me on social media. Whatever. I'm not even on social media. Peter does my social media. But anyway.
Yeah, I have to deal with all the bullshit. So
you're not on social media. Yeah.
So they started talking shit about me, these women, and that don't even know me. So I'm like, okay, well then I'm going to give them something to talk about. So I wear watermelon shirts to Pilates every single time that I go to Pilates. I am constantly wearing watermelon stuff. So, but here's the thing. And I'd love to show up in the keffiyeh. But the problem is, it's like, I feel like if I push it too far, then I'm asking for the owner to pull me aside and say, you're making so many women uncomfortable. We would appreciate if you would leave the political stuff at home, even though I'm just wearing shirts with watermelons specifically that are just literally shirts with watermelon.
Well, it's very traumatic for them. You have to understand, inconveniencing them in any way, having them to think, in a different manner is just like, so you got to handle it with kid gloves,
That's the problem. Mm-hmm. And what if they, and if I really get into it, at the end of the day, I am not willing to forego my studio. So, and plus I feel like I'm more effective being across from them, across the room, wearing watermelons, like while we're doing class. Like, I feel like that's more effective use of me than if I weren't there at all.
Right. Yeah.
I would definitely be curious from where you stand from when you made that viral video. And obviously you have caught a lot of heat, including, I think, some banning circumstances because of the fact that you are so outspoken about what's going on in Palestine right now. And even at this moment, when it is obvious that hundreds of thousands of them have been mass murdered, and yet you still see these exceptionally privileged individuals who constantly talk about how they're afraid. Oh no, I think some people may throw tomatoes at us at some point. We always knew that there was a privileged portion of our culture, but it is just wide open in everybody's faces now. And I would imagine that your experience over this past year has been quite, I would imagine, eye-opening as well.
Absolutely. I obviously had a lot of backlash for using my platform, which, has really no bearing on what the Palestinians are actually going through. I feel a little awkward when people are saying, well, you must be getting all this heat or whatever. I mean, I always say it's like the least that I can do, given, my understanding of the world and my skill set. It's like, this is the least I can do is talk about what the people are going through in Palestine, because they're not able to get that message. And, I can communicate that to people here effectively, because I'm in this culture. And, I think that the American working class, if we actually did organize against the genocide and other important issues, we could actually change things. But it's also been real positive. Like I've been grateful to have opportunities to go and speak and amplify the message, and met some amazing, wonderful people along the way. So I'm extremely grateful for as some of like you mentioned, the banning and all these things, like being restricted and censored. But I'm trying to say that it's also a lot of positivity that has happened in my life since for the past year, which is paradoxically stands juxtaposed from what's happening in the Middle East, obviously. So I don't know if I answered that question very well.
You did. It's sort of like, it's always bittersweet when you're in this space and in these movements, because the things that bring people together are usually horrible.
Yeah,
and that's just unfortunate, like how that works.
Yeah.
But the bigger that the web gets, and the more like we build coalitions and everybody's sort of networks connects with everybody's networks, that's the revolution. That's what we need to be happening, because it's not going to come from electoral politics. And again, we're not condoning violence. People call me if you want me to do that privately, but it's like this class of people, these elite people, have made it clear that other things are not working. I love when the same people who are so like clutching their pearls are the same people that think that the protests, the pro-Palestinian encampments were so, oh my God, those are so violent. The Jewish students feel uncomfortable. It's, when you leave people with no other options, this is what's going to happen.
Right.
And every single one of these instances brings more and more people like us together in this sort of class war, because that's ultimately what we're in. We're in a class war, and it's global, and we see it everywhere. And the more links, I feel like the more links in our network, the better we're served.
Absolutely. You took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, beginning with, that it's not going to come from, the revolution's not going to, true change doesn't come from politics. It doesn't come from the electorate,
No,
it comes from economic action in the, by the working class. And I think with what I do with satire and all this, it's always interesting, an angle to expose the double standard that is in American society, that there are different rules for the rich as for the poor. And, you bring up the point about violins. I always think about Michael
Gilda
Parenti.
Radner.
Gilda Radner. Oh, is that from Gilda?
Violins in the media? I don't know what you're younger than me, I think. Did you watch, like, you don't know any Gilda Radner?
I know of Gilda Radner. She was an SNL cast member.
Right. Well, there was this thing, and I cannot remember if it was, I think it was Rosanna Dana. And one of the skits was she didn't understand the problem what everyone was having with all of these violins in the media. And it was, yeah, that was the premise of it. So when you said that, that's what came to mind.
And I'm doing that because I know we're on YouTube, I know that, so I always try to censor myself and the best I can. But I usually am a little too little too late. But it's the violins of that it's basically what I was trying to say was that the violins of the ruling class is deemed democracy promotion. Any violins that promotes or that upends the privileged social relations of the ruling class, well, that's T-wordism. There's another censorship word for you. But
we do try to, mind our P's and Q's, but at the same time, we cannot deny the impact of what Luigi Mangione has done and what that is ultimately going to result in as we go forward. And I think that the other viral clip that you made that I think is extremely relevant, which Jen has been talking about in terms of what really needs to happen, we're going to play it right now.
We need a general strike in the United States because under capitalism, genocides are profitable. The exact reason for a general strike lies in the very definition of capitalism to begin with. Private ownership of the means of production concurrent with the exploitation exploitation of labor. Baked into the capitalist's equation, therein lies the antidote. For a capitalist's greatest strength is simultaneously their greatest weakness: profits. Capitalists can only turn a profit by depending on you, the worker. If there are no engineers to build the weapons, no drivers or operators to deliver them, no longshoremen to load or unload them, no technicians to provide logistics, no administrators to push the paperwork, no clerks, no operators, no workers, just severed links in the supply chain, then the mass murder cannot continue, and the exploitation of the American working class can stop. Genocides are completely destructive, but for all of the devastation that they wrought, there is exponentially more organizational power and creative energy put into producing one behind the scenes. We are the producers, but we don't have to produce this. So in solidarity with the working class and in solidarity with the Palestinians, I support a general strike.
So May 1st, 2028.
Yes, May 1st, 2028. Actually, also December 19th, 2024, and a couple days, I'm going to be speaking. I made that video for an account called General Strike for Resignation, and they're an organization that is basically trying to get the word out about general strikes, and we're doing a virtual town hall with Chris Smalls, who's one of my heroes.
We've had him on. We had him on before.
Way before.
They even had organized. Yeah, we're old.
No, I like how you're like, no, I knew him when.
I knew him. No, but he's also connected to the reason why we no longer have a website, because we were being sued by Reuters for, ironically, Reuters wanted to sue me for using a picture that they took of Chris Smalls that we had on our website under our change maker section. And I'm like, the irony of that is the picture that's the issue. And I'm like, you know what? It's not even worth it. I'm just taking it down. We don't even need our website anyway. But.
That's pretty base though. That happened to you. That's pretty cool.
And I would also
flex right there for sure.
And I would also say that the relevance of this particular message is one that I think comes full circle with Mangione, because no matter what we try, and I know Jen hates when I say this, but I am a participant in the capitalist system. I'm in commercial real estate.
I don't hate when you say it. I just disagree with it and think that it's misguided information.
Fair enough. I'm gonna, I can still acknowledge that the system is broken, and that much like the people that still try to defend the system and say the problem with socialism is that you eventually run out of other people's money, of course, not acknowledging that they know what they're talking about. What I say about capitalism is this. The problem with capitalism is that you eventually run out of people to exploit. And that's essentially what the system is built on.
And other people's money. I mean, it's propped up by, state funding and, government bailouts. So it's all public money that they paradoxically, hypocritically need. There's so many contradictions in capitalism. I could go on and on, but it's so defined. It's so important to share these hypocrisies, I think. But yeah, getting back to Luigi Mangione, I mean, it's that double standard. I mean, what I'm trying to tell people is that social murder is murder. Economic violence is violence.
It's violence. Yes.
So
oh my God.
Yeah. How do we not see those, that double standard, that it's okay to deny people healthcare and kill them. And when the poor fight back, well, that's, a brazen targeted attack. And, what a ruthless M-worder. I'm trying to.
Yeah. No. How long have you been in this space, like the sort of anti-capitalist? Because, for me, I've always been, at some point, I know I was in the libtard category. I'll have to own that. I voted for Bill Clinton twice. I did what I did. Like, I can't.
I still appreciate you doing that. I'll never forget it.
So I have to and I'll have to, I'm atoning for that shit probably for eternity. But when was it that you said you're a music teacher, so you're not a philosophy teacher. You're not like a Marxist economics professor. So what got you into that sort of mindset?
That's a great question. I feel like there's two aspects to this answer for this question. I think consciously it happened in 2020 for me, going through COVID, just, the lockdown. I poured into Noam Chomsky lectures, and then just started diving into leftist literature. And it just resonated with me. And I think once you hear the truth about the state of the world, because I think everybody's grasping for answers, everybody's trying to make some sort of sense of what's happening. And, that was the moment, I guess, when I had time to just sit down and do nothing, where I started to dig and think more critically about my world, that it's very much resonated with me. And I just became fascinated. I mean, it felt like a fire was lit in my mind. Like I just had to learn as much as I could about all of these important issues. And, given my skills as a teacher, I guess, in being able to I had to learn to be an effective communicator. And, being creative, I guess, also, it just led me to want to make content about the things. I've always sort of made content about things that I'm passionate about. And at that time, and then, if you had caught me in a different point in my life, it would have been about something else, but, at that time, it's like, okay, that's what took off. So I'm sort of leaning into that now, because I feel like it's working, but, and I feel like it's important. But I also think that it started, I've always been, whether I knew it or not, anti-capitalist. I mean, I've always rejected this political economy somehow. And I think that's why what drove me to become a musician and then ultimately a teacher, because I came from a well-to-do family. I don't know what the term upper middle class means anymore.
I don't either.
But maybe you could ascribe that to my family and my socioeconomic status as I was growing up. I mean, I went to a nice school. My stepdad was, a CEO of a vending company. I mean, I could have certainly climbed the corporate ladder if I really wanted to, but I was just repulsed by the whole thing. And I never really knew why. I just knew that capitalism was just gross, and I wanted nothing to do with it. And getting back to your point about how you're into commercial real estate, so you're partaking in capitalism, I would say capitalism is compulsory. I mean, we're all taught to fend for ourselves, and there is no ethical consumption in capitalism, and we're working for corporations in one way or another. So I don't fault working class people for trying to come up, in this political economy.
It may be a limited amount of principle, but one thing I do adhere to are certain principles within the confines of commercial real estate. There are certain people.
He boycotts certain nation state people who are involved in genocidal behavior.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So if they're involved,
he doesn't work with certain said people that support that.
Yeah.
And I make a point. I make a point not to.
That's good.
And that is something where, thankfully, I'm not in South Florida anymore, because anytime I would go to conferences, particularly in Miami or Fort Lauderdale, that's who's there. And they dominate the industry. And this is part of the reason why they are able to get away with this, because when you get right down to brass tacks, this is all about money and power. There is no hidden agenda. There's no hidden agenda in Gaza. There's no hidden agenda in Ukraine. There's no hidden agenda in Taiwan. Everything is all connected to money and power. It's like
Right.
Lindsey Graham coming out like a couple of weeks ago acknowledging that there is upwards of $8 trillion worth of natural resources in Western Ukraine. I'm like, we've been saying this for how long now?
Yeah.
You're just starting to come around to it. And then you find out that BlackRock is basically planting the seeds to do all of the rebuild in Ukraine once things are finally settled. It's
How nice of them.
but the
Mhm.
propaganda is just incredible. And I think what your intentions, which I think are great, is to just cut through the bullshit and just say the Palestinian people deserve human rights, and every which way that they can try to rationalize, because let's be honest, that's what real racism is. There is a real inherent bigotry in Zionism that believes that we are the chosen people, therefore we are superior and we could do what we want. And all those brownies out in the Middle East, you know, they can all die for all we care. That is real egotism in our culture that I hope is getting broken down.
Yeah.
And that I think is changing. And I think that because of the videos that you've made, I think that that impact is definitely being felt. Do you feel that that is, however slowly it may be happening, but that we are in fact turning a corner as far as that's concerned?
I 1000% believe that. And I do believe that there's power in social media and changing the culture around these topics. I wonder, you know, I wonder if it's enough. You know, it's just disheartening, you know, every day waking up, seeing another Israeli airstrike. It just keeps going on. It's been over a year. I know that I'm making somewhat of an impact. I don't know how big it is, or if it's certainly not enough. I mean, we need to all be doing more, and it's a joint effort. But I do get a lot of positive feedback from strangers that message me saying how, you know, not only did I change their minds, but now they're changing other people's minds, that they're family members or friends. And so that means a lot to me to know that it's had an effect. But yeah, I do wonder if it's enough, and what
it
I
has
should
an
be doing.
effect. If
Yeah.
you want to know like something where I know for a fact it has an effect, it has effect on the Palestinians that are stuck in Gaza that still get communication, because every time that they know that there's people that are standing in solidarity, it does matter to them. We know people here who are connected to people there, and I know that that's something that they see, and that it's important to them to know that the world has not forgotten them. So it like that alone is extremely important.
Absolutely.
I think it also speaks to a video clip that I'd like to play for you to comment on us with before you go, because we do want to do a segment that I think is very relevant to this, because as you mentioned, you know, the problems with capitalism. No greater example than where we stand today right now, which is on the precipice of a great awakening of people realizing that we must have single payer healthcare in this country. That is essentially what Luigi Mangione. It's amazing how the Italians, you know, the names, they all roll together.
He's only the alleged, by the way. I don't even know if I saw a Moida, is all I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, you know what? And here's the thing. I so much, as someone who, one of the things I find fascinating in law is jury selection. I so much want to be on that jury selection. Like, I want to help them. First of all, I do not see how you're going to find 12 individuals that don't have a personal grievance in some way against health insurance industry. I don't see how you're going to find 12. You could switch venue all you want. You could go wherever you want. Where you find, you think you're going to find 12 people? Yeah. And at this point, this is a like snitches get stitches situation. Like people are not having this shit anymore. And I just think that that his attorney, first of all, is my understanding is she's fierce.
Really? Okay, good.
Oh, and they've been getting donations. Apparently over $100,000 have already come in from people donating.
I saw that. I just wish he didn't have the things on him that he had on him when he was taken in.
Personally, I think he meant to get caught. That's what
I think. Well, you know, you would have to think, right? I mean, either that or.
So you're thinking they're going to have to be able to find him guilty, because even though you don't want to, you're going to see all of these facts and da-da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah. Honestly, man,
I think there's so much. This is glorious for
the fact that this is playing out so much like the Joker movie. Like it really is the Joker movie come to life. And one of the first things that we put out on social media was that meme that basically said, "Are you telling me that you think it's funny that a United Health CEO was shot?" And he's like, "I do, Murray, and I'm tired of pretending." It's like it was just so much. And so one of the things that I experienced that, Jen, have I mentioned where I went to college? Have I mentioned that before? Where did I go to college?
He went to Rutgers. Okay, so this is where I was going. David said something
Oh,
about finding
okay.
jurors that'll find him.
Rutgers.
Yes,
All right.
they will
Fancy.
convict him of something. Yes, they will convict him of something, but what that something is based on
Carrying
how
a
good
firearm in
this
this,
attorney is,
carrying a firearm in New York City, you can't.
this attorney could get this to where, yes, he gets convicted of something, but let's see what that is. Yes,
I think
they might have to.
I think it'll be riding a bike while Italian.
That's a good one. We should all come up with like what could be really good charges for him, because no, that's what's going to happen is she's going to get shit all sorts of dismissed for all different reasons. First of all, we're going to have chain of custody problems. That's always fun. We'll have a battle of the experts. That'll be fun. Like there's a lot of good stuff here, but I just don't think that he's going to get found guilty of anything that's putting him away for what he would normally get put away for.
And as long as we are continuing to talk about him, the more this conversation will happen that breaks down the entire, I mean, listen, we could talk all day and night about how the capitalist system has reached its expiration date, that we are heading in a direction where we better get some type of a social democracy. Otherwise, we are heading in a very dangerous direction because of the desperation that people are feeling. And so the reason I bring up Rutgers is because when I was a student there, lo and behold, one of the most powerful big pharmaceutical corporations was right up the road on Route 1 in South Brunswick. And who is that mega pharmaceutical corporation? It is none other than Johnson & Johnson. And so this is a little capitalist story about what happens when there is no regulation. And if you remember, there was a cancerous agent that was in their baby powder. Well, credit to More Perfect Union, a very good group that does a lot of solid work regarding labor. This is what's been going on at Johnson & Johnson. May they all burn in hell.
Company can get by with these types of tactics, then the American people are in serious danger.
Most likely, my mother used the powder. That was the big thing back then in the 40s and 50s.
What's that stuff? Johnson's baby powder.
I have 2 girls, and I also used it on them. And then in turn, they used it on their sons, their children, too.
Women like Marianne trusted Johnson & Johnson's baby powder for generations. It wasn't just a product, it was a ritual passed down from mother to child. The marketing worked so well that by the late 1960s, an internal memo crowned baby powder the cornerstone of Johnson & Johnson's entire baby business. The product itself was simple: talc, a mineral mined from the earth. But in 1966, academics published a troubling discovery. Talc had no medicinal value. Worse, it was linked to 3 deaths. The warning made its way through Johnson & Johnson's executive offices.
There was a concern starting in the 1970s about asbestos being in talc because of testing done by the FDA.
That's Jessica Dean. She's a plaintiff's attorney. For over a decade, she's been fighting Johnson & Johnson in court over the deadly discovery of asbestos in talc, the mineral used in baby powder.
The problem is that talc and asbestos often grow together. It has been known for decades to be a common impurity in talc.
Asbestos causes mesothelioma, a cancer that destroys organ linings from within. It's also linked to ovarian cancer. No amount of processing can make it safe.
You're mixing a carcinogen into a powder product designed to be used on children and designed to be used in our homes. And that's the problem at the core of what Johnson & Johnson did.
The government had concerns pretty early. In 1972, they called a meeting to review an FDA study that found asbestos in a huge chunk of products on store shelves. 5 members of J&J went, along with some other industry groups. And this is where the paper trail picks up. According to the meeting summary, an industry lobbyist pushed to keep the FDA study secret, saying it could cause great economic hardship for the companies. J&J said that the government's positive asbestos tests were faulty, and that their own tests came back negative. That's more or less the company's position on testing to this day.
They will boast, look at how many tests we've done that don't show asbestos. And they use tests that were underpowered. A simple example I can think of is if you are trying to weigh a feather, you don't use a bathroom scale. It's not going to show up. You need to have something that is more sensitive.
Coming out of that meeting, the government agreed to let companies self-test, and Johnson & Johnson promised to share their own records, swearing they found nothing concerning.
When they made that promise, they had already done testing revealing asbestos in the actual samples from Dr. Lewin at the FDA. In fact, 1/3 of the fibers in baby powder were tremolite asbestos. There were over 400 samples evidencing asbestos in talc that J&J knew about after they promised our government will give you everything, and we now know they didn't give them any of it.
Jessica isn't the only one alleging this. At this point, it's more or less common knowledge. Real people paid the price.
Never thought that I would have cancer. It was a shock. First time, the tumor was the size of a cantaloupe.
Marianne beat ovarian cancer in 2008, only to see it return 4 years later. The subsidiary at the start is part of something called the Texas two-step. Here, a super rich and profitable company like J&J creates a subsidiary. They take that subsidiary and they register it in Texas. The subsidiary holds everything related to the baby powder, the good stuff, the sales and profits, and the bad, the lawsuits. Then, using a quirk in Texas law, they split it in two.
And instead of calling it a division, they called that a merger. It's called a divisive merger.
One company gets all the money.
Divisive merger.
Let's call it good company. The other gets the lawsuits. Let's call that bad company. And then they take that good company, move it back to New Jersey. And the bad company, that's Red River Talc. That number in Texas I called, They basically received their mail. And Johnson & Johnson takes that bad company and declares bankruptcy in Texas.
That's what's at stake here, is will bankruptcy prove to be an escape hatch for corporate misconduct?
Bankruptcy doesn't mean failure. It's a timeout. Everything pauses while you fix what's broken. The catch? Courts watch your every move. Real companies move fast in bankruptcy. They don't want a court telling them how to run their business. But Red River Talc, it's just paper. There's no factories, there's no business to watch over. But when it declares bankruptcy, those cancer lawsuits freeze. And that's exactly what J&J wants.
They can hold, the victims hostage. They just use it as a weapon.
When we're talking about people who have had some sort of asbestos exposure or similar allegations, the claimants are dying.
That's Melissa Jacoby. She's a law professor and expert on America's bankruptcy system.
In the meantime, all those jury trials are being canceled.
J&J claims this is about fairness, that the bankruptcy creates an orderly process for victims. And if you want to see how fair it really is, just look at what happened at the paper giant Georgia Pacific. In 2017, Georgia Pacific dumped all of their asbestos cases into a subsidiary and declared bankruptcy in North Carolina.
Those cancer victims have not received a dime. That case has just been held hostage since 2017.
Here's the kicker. While the victims waited, many died. Meanwhile, Georgia Pacific has paid their parent company, Koch Industries, $3 billion in dividends, triple what they offered victims.
I didn't realize how long that was, but that's really good. Was that More Perfect Union?
Yes, and that was cut down like a third or half at least.
I don't know how exactly, but just my initial take on that video is my vibes-based analysis is that that video was anti-Semitic.
Just
and
slightly.
And I think that we, haven't the corporations suffered enough? I mean, won't someone please think about corporations, because they do so much good, and yet they're constantly being targeted in the press. They're constantly being chastised, and
they can't get a fair shake.
They really can't, and it's upsetting. And it, what do you guys want them to do? You want these CEOs to sell their mega yacht? Have you no heart?
How are they going to live?
Yeah, well, Woody Johnson, friend of the Donald, he's a great friend, great person.
Nice.
So he is worth $3.33 billion as the primary shareholder of Johnson & Johnson. And he, of course, is the principal owner of the New York Jets. It would be ashamed if he had to sell his NFL franchise because lawsuits just continue to flood because of wrongful death suits, which is what should be thrown at them. I remember as an 80s kid seeing the Johnson & Johnson baby powder white bottle. I remember it. How could you not? It was sold in the hundreds of millions. And all the while they knew that this was poisoning people. But we are going to figure out a way to scurry the law, which is what these mega corporations always do. That's why they say, what do you call 1,000 lawyers? Sorry, Jen, chained together at the bottom of the ocean. There's a reason that joke comes about.
Good start.
Because even if these attorneys, they know what they're doing is wrong, they always hide behind this, well, legally it's allowed. So I don't have any morality with this.
But didn't you guys just have a lawyer on your show, Steven Donziger? Isn't he But he's a good lawyer. He's one of the
he's one of the good ones.
He's a good lawyer.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, look, it's funny because I've talked about this before. I went to law school because I wanted to lobby for nonprofit. I actually wanted to be a lobbyist. But for me, it was about working for somebody like Barry Scheck at the Innocence Project. Like I had thoughts about like, you know, people think lobbying is so horrible. I'm like, no, the lobbying isn't the problem. We actually need lobbyists. You don't want Congress people writing legislation on agriculture. I assure you, you don't want that. That is not anything.
It's
good.
lobbying for who? I always got to go back to that question for who, you know?
Exactly. And what is it? And the fact that there doesn't need to be a money exchange. There could be education, right? Well, that's why I went to law school. So yes, I am a lawyer, but I'm a good lawyer.
One of the good ones. Of
Like
course.
Vincent,
I would have,
not like Vincent LaGuardia Gambini. You're a lawyer. No?
And you know, the one thing one thing I noticed in that video, what I was thinking was, didn't Exxon Mobil do the same thing in the 70s? Like they had internally,
1977.
They conducted studies on like what oil drilling was going to do to the environment, and then I don't know the particulars, but they basically, you know,
basically what the report found is that there was conclusive evidence that the constant drilling for crude oil was causing a spike in the surface temperatures on the planet. And they basically suppressed that report during the Carter administration, and it never came to light. They just were allowed to get away with it.
Yeah.
And while I do appreciate the work that the soon to be departed former President Carter did for Habitat for Humanity, appreciate all the homes that he built. He did a lot of really effed up things during his administration. And being able to suppress that particular report, it's earth-shattering. It really is. And we are going to pay. We are paying as we speak.
Absolutely. And the poor will pay first, you know.
Always.
Yeah.
Well, that's why. And listen, we've had David Sirota on the podcast. We have been trying to get Adam McKay on for a while, but Don't Look Up was a documentary. It wasn't a movie.
I never did see that, but I should.
Oh, you have to see it. Oh my God.
Listen, I am not a fan.
It's so freaking funny.
I am not a fan of Jonah Hill in any way, shape, or form.
He was even really funny in that.
He is really, really good in that movie.
Okay.
I guess he's trying to be.
It's interesting that that's who you pick out of that whole cast to think. Like, there's so many. I mean, you've got Meryl Streep.
Well, Jennifer Lawrence was fantastic in that movie. I thought that Cate Blanchett,
oh my God,
Krasinski was absolutely spot on.
Yeah, you have to watch it.
Okay, I gotta watch it.
Yeah, definitely recommend it.
So
well, you're gonna watch. Yeah, you're gonna watch, and you're gonna be like, "Holy fuck!"
It's
like
a documentary. That's what it's like. It kind of
a mockumentary.
It's a mockumentary.
It's like basically making fun of the fact that we're just like the truth is right there. Everything's so obvious, but just don't look at it. Right.
Right. We're all gonna die, but just don't worry.
No, it's definitely our it's this generation's. This is Spinal Tap. Like that is exactly.
Okay. First of all, we don't know what generation. I'm X, and he's a millennial.
I'm a millennial as well.
You're a
I'm
millennial.
38 years old. Yeah.
Okay, so you're with him. Yeah.
There you go. So, sorry, Jen.
Don't be sorry. I know how cool we are. The Gen X people are the ones that do not and I know that you've seen that content when people start talking. Do not talk shit about Gen X.
And the one thing
I stay clear. I don't want no trouble.
You've seen some of those people for like there's all these Gen X content creators that is just so funny, but like, yeah, don't start with us. We're the last generation of feral children. Nobody was allergic to fucking gluten. Like she went off on this whole thing. It's so funny.
Imagine how much microplastics is in a Gen Xer. I mean, it's got to be an obscene amount.
Yeah.
You think? But our food was better for a longer period of time.
Oh, maybe so.
You know what I mean? Like our stuff was
the trade-off.
Like when I was younger, our red peppers were healthier.
Well, not only that, but that's also why, as it comes full circle, I don't want to hear anything from anybody about how RFK this or RFK that. You have allowed it to get to this point where somebody like him has to step in. You have had ample opportunity to do something about this. And then I come along and I tell you that if you don't read the labels on your food, especially those bags of chips that you eat every day, you are poisoning yourself. And it's like, yes, he's right. We are.
Dude, your
So-
impressions are spot on.
He
I'm
does
very
a few. He has the masks. He does a few really good ones, and it's
No,
something.
but I don't have the mask of the former governor
I
of
don't love the
California.
Arnold.
Imagine
No,
if he was the president of the United States, we'd probably be in better shape than having that Donald Trump right now.
His best is Bernie.
Well, I think you're doing a good job. I think it shows. I think that they're very educational. They're very important, and I think you should definitely continue doing what you're doing because it is very important that people get the news somehow. And if they get it in, through the TikTok is what they call it. That's okay. That's a good place.
That's okay. I'm always impressed by that because I can't do impressions. So I mean, kudos to you. That's
You
talent.
could do Zach Galifianakis. Like you could totally pull that off.
That's just a natural, I just exude
right.
that energy, right?
He is I mean, honestly, I look back now on, on The Hangover, and I realized that he really carried that movie. Like he was just.
He's so freaking funny.
made
No,
it
between two
a really
ferns.
good comedy.
I worked so hard on that movie. Thank you guys for acknowledging.
Yes. It's a
Where do
satire.
you teach? Seriously, where do you teach? And wait, what's your name? What's your real name?
My real name is Andrew.
Okay, Andrew.
Yeah.
And where do you teach?
I actually don't teach anymore ever. Like I taught for a while in New Orleans, at a private school, and then I quit that job because I was literally making no money. And I talk about this a lot on stream because it's like teachers get paid dirt.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I was making like $32,000 a year, and then by the time I left, it was like $40,000 a year, which is still just like breadcrumbs. So and I realized that I was making more money just teaching private piano lessons after school than I was teaching full classes throughout the entire day. So I was like, screw this. So I then just started teaching privately and setting my own rates and still pursuing music. Like I did a lot of playing piano in like jazz clubs and hotels and stuff, and having residencies in New Orleans and stuff like that. But I've just been like a gig, musician for whether it's a piano lesson or actual music gig. I've just been doing that for years and years. And then more recently, just with social media, I've just been able to not have to focus on that less as I get more opportunities, being a political commentator, if you will. So.
Yeah. So where'd you go to music school?
Well, I went to, I went to the University of Mississippi, believe it or not. Yeah. And I studied piano performance there as well as English. So I had like a English and piano performance degree. And I loved classical music. I still love classical music. I'm a classical music nerd. But that was, sort of what I studied, classical piano, Mozart, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I say it all the time. The greatest thing I've ever done in my whole life is I have birthed a musician, and my son went to school for music and he plays classical piano.
Oh, wow.
And now he's working for the man in a way that I don't need to get into, but he still is a musician, and it's the coolest thing ever. And when he's home, it's always classical music. So yeah.
What's his favorite composer?
He loves Chopin.
Wrong.
He plays like, I just love listening to him play, and he plays by ear. Like he had to sort of like fake it and pretend he could read music for a while. Now he can because he went to school for it. It's amazing.
Sight reading is tough. It didn't come naturally for me either, but yeah.
Yeah. I just appreciate the music thing. But so now what he's doing is real estate risk analysis in portfolios for a company called Chatham Financial. And they're a niche company. So their clients are Blackstone. That's one of their clients. Exactly.
That is shit that I don't involve myself in under any
That is what he's doing now. And I just
not good. Not good. Really not good.
I
Somebody said Bach. Bach was a charlatan, okay? Bach was a complete charlatan.
There's a little factoid.
I like when we meet like young people that like classical music.
Yeah.
There's a little factoid that I have tried to emphasize to people, that if you don't realize how we are, and again, this gets back to why I actually look, there's a lot of things with RFK that I disagreed with, but the thing that he talked about that I thought was what he really knocked out of the park when he ran is the fact that private equity led by BlackRock / Blackstone, State Street, and Vanguard within the decade will own 60% of the single family homes in this country. And because the system is completely broken for regular people, you could say it's working the way it's intended to work for the powers that be. I can agree with that.
Yeah.
But as long as that is going to persist, there is no getting out of this hellscape. And if you need any more proof that that this is what needs to change, that we must break away from this system, is that those companies that I just mentioned, they are the biggest shareholders by far in United Health.
Yeah. Oh, and not just that company, but like every company. If we're referring to BlackRock and, Vanguard, obviously we know that I actually asked RFK in a virtual town hall about capitalism, like just to see, I was very much like, I phrased the question being very anti-capitalist and saying, can we reform this? And he basically gave me some answer along the lines of, well, it's not capitalism, it's corporatism. We need to, reform it. But you're
that's a distinction without a difference.
What's that?
That's a distinction without a difference.
Yeah, that's right. It's like it materially amounts to nothing. He's just paying lip service to like, oh yeah, it's bad, but we can, just a few more years of reform, that'll do the trick.
And I do think that he cares, but at the end of the day, he's a Kennedy. You're talking about a person that literally comes from one of the most dynastic families of the 20th century.
It's a good word. Yeah.
It is a good word.
There's just like, oh, you complimented me, Jen? Oh,
I did. It's a good word for you.
I like this. I like this this dynamic here. It's very dynastic, by the way.
We've been together for 5 years. It's quite dynastic. I want to tell you my Bach story because this is the thing. I was taking my son, my musician son, for his 18th birthday. I took him to New York, and I gave there was a concert that he wanted to see, and it was on the same night and this was Eric Clapton's last show in this country, and he played Madison Square Garden. So that's what I wanted to see. That was the night. That was what I wanted to see. What did I go see that Reese wanted to see was Bach's Brandenburg concertos played, at this like off whatever place with a harpsichord, mind you.
Oof.
And then there was dancing with it. It was actually really pretty. I will give him that. But I'm like, I wanted to go see Eric Clapton.
In between the naps, it was nice.
It was nice, but it was Eric Clapton, and now I'm never getting to see Eric Clapton, right? Like that's the thing.
Yeah.
Well, I do like
Bach.
I do like the.
I know you could go hear Bach any day of the week.
Thank you.
You can't go, but I think Eric Clapton. Not to cut you off, but Eric Clapton is a Zionist, as I understand. That ruins it for me. Like my favorite band is Radiohead, and I can never listen to them again.
It sucks when that happens, right?
Yeah.
I know that really does suck. That's why we used to do our intro to our show like a Seinfeld episode. We used to celebrate Festivus every year and have the
Why don't you people like me anymore?
Because you're a douchebag. So now that's completely ruined. So now we don't have a new intro. We have no intro.
But here's the only defense of Seinfeld.
I had to change my ringtone for him.
If you didn't know that Jerry was a colossal prick of the highest order forever, and you just figured that out once he showed that he was a Zionist, it would have been like, no, I would have been shocked if you weren't a Zionist.
Yeah,
I know.
That's the hard part.
I can get over douchey. Douchey doesn't have, being a prick is like, I could still
it
have
sucks
fun
because
with that
it sucks because Jason Alexander, from everything I've read and heard, is that he's a really good guy and he's not a Zionist. And it's like, but you kind of need to speak up in this moment. You need to say that this is not acceptable.
Not being a Zionist is not sufficient.
I agree. It's not enough.
Being neutral to fascism is the same as siding with fascism.
Exactly.
And, Zionism is the new NAZI-ism. So
it is.
So it's like
I call them Zioans.
Trust me, and Jen always ribs on me for this, but Springsteen was my musical hero, and he's always been.
But that got thrown to shit.
But
he's also
He's not a Zionist, but he's not going to speak out against it because he's friends with a lot of them. Like he's
okay, no. That's not what the issue was. The issue is that he is now like besties with the Obamas, and he's hanging out with people like that.
Yeah.
And he's out there simping for Kamala and all this shit. And it's just the rebellion he is missing the point.
Right.
That is what it is.
Yeah.
That's why I'm like Roger Waters. Thank God for at least we got
Seriously.
Pink Floyd or half.
And
of
I have
Pink
Susan
Floyd.
Sarandon, and that's basically
Yeah.
it. That's all that's left.
And then there's some that are like almost there, and then they don't do it. Mark Ruffalo and John Cusack. I
was like, out in the election, I'm like, et tu, Mark Ruffalo, et tu.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
It was just brutal.
And again, the ultimate problem when you get right down to it is if you are adjacent to the Democratic Party establishment in any way,
yeah,
that's it. It's over.
It's
like,
over.
Don't. And I've been a registered Democrat forever, but I know where the line gets drawn.
Yeah.
Like if you think that it's all about your career, and we don't have to get into it now. We definitely would love to have you back at some point.
Yeah.
But something as simple as AOC and her choices that she's made, only to find out that they are now blocking her from having any type of a leadership position. It's like, why did you not force the vote on Medicare for All 3 years ago? We at least would have gotten an idea of
why. Because she's AOC Pelosi.
I know. The yassification of AOC is like a modern day tragedy.
It is.
For lack of a better word.
It is. She is. She had an opportunity to be the friggin' Mockingjay, and instead she's turned into AOC Pelosi.
Yeah.
I put out a tweet a little earlier that pissed off a few of the sycophantic progressives out there.
Oh, good.
And I just basically said, you spent all this time focusing on your career only to get blocked when you could have forced the vote on Medicare for All. And Lord knows what that would have translated into over the last few years. Chances are we never would have heard of Luigi Mangione. And there are people who got really pissed off at that. And I'm thinking, no, it's the truth. Mangione is a result of you not fucking doing anything, of being a bunch of fucking cuck pussies, which is what you all, with all due respect, this is a significant portion of the progressive left. They do not understand that you have to be able to deal with your feelings being hurt. You have to be able to deal with not sucking up to your leadership and not just caving anytime they tell you, well, we have to get behind so-and-so. Even in the face of genocide.
Yeah.
Bullshit.
Where's the red line, folks? I mean, for real. I feel like no matter what, in Washington, D.C., they always get ground down into these machine politicians, no matter what angle they come at with.
Which is why the revolution is happening on the outside.
Exactly.
Right.
Thank you so much for coming on and chatting with us. Like, are you are you mostly Instagram or TikTok? I mean, I see you on Instagram because I'm not really on social media.
It just depends. And thank you guys for having me. I've really enjoyed our conversation, and I only recently found out about this awesome podcast, so I'll definitely be tuning in and keeping up with it. But it just depends on the day and the month, because it feels like I've been having to pivot to all these different apps. So I'm sort of on, like, I think I did the count. I'm like on like close to 15 different apps. But
oh wow!
All because I get restricted, I get banned, I have to create backup pages. But yeah, I stream on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. I still call it Twitter. Every day. And then I also I still post on Instagram and TikTok as well. So
yeah, I'm like, Peter's been handling my social media for like, it seems like 5 years now, and
I'm not a bitch. Trust me, I'm not. I'm just a very decent person.
Sure thing, Peter. Yeah. No, definitely.
There have been some arguments, but I am like, I have this voyeur account that I use on Instagram that I use for my little art business. So I don't post political stuff because that's just not my thing. But that's where I see you, because I don't I can't be on Twitter, and I can't be on Facebook, and I can't be on the people are too mean. Okay?
Oh my God. Yeah.
And I don't do mean, and I don't need that shit in my headspace.
It's toxic. Yeah. Lots of toxic people.
It's amazing how, women go after other women. Like, it's like
I just want them to say it to my face. That's again, see, here's Gen X. Okay. If you have something to say, you come say it to my face. I don't, because none of these people would say this shit if they were in my face. And that is why they're cowards. And that is the thing I cannot play with.
They're keyboard warriors, I call them.
Amen.
I can't.
Yeah.
For conversation number 2, which we will hopefully do in the new year.
Yeah.
You may not have known this, but Jen did run for Congress against the ultimate Zio-Nazi of them all, Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And so there is a lot to tackle there, but gives you a better understanding.
Just Google it. It's really, it's not as fascinating as I think Peter thinks it is, but that's how we got this. That's where we transitioned into this platform, was from that.
Oh, okay. From the momentum that was created
from my first campaign, and I had all this. We had like 50-something thousand Twitter followers at the time, and I'm like, okay, what are we going to do with this? So we turned it into a podcast, and then I use it as an opportunity to meet experts, authors. We have journalists. We get like veterans for peace. We get all sorts.
You get Rothbone.
That's right.
Yes, we do.
Best decision you ever made, by the way.
I think so.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, all it's going to take is one of these like 60-second clips that ends up on TikTok and it goes viral. And then the next thing you know, Jen, we got another 1,000 subscribers.
Let me tell you something. I would love to be able to make money doing this. I would. I just, it's just not at this point, like a thing that like that can't, I don't know.
I feel like I'll make a clip of this if you guys want me to share?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I love it, but this is what happened. When we first started this show, one of the first things I did was have an Assange-a-thon. And I did this telethon for Julian Assange and had like a lot of people. We had Chris Hedges was on it. Like, I mean, Katie Halper co-hosted it with me. Like, it was just a really cool thing. And ever since the Assange-a-thon, we've been shadow banned. Like it's so difficult. We've been demonetized. We've been, but it's been so slow for us because of that. Yeah. And then it didn't help when I got on multi anti-Zio rants. Right. And that was pre-October 7th that I started Deconstructing Zionism series. But the year before, we started in October 22. Nice.
Okay.
And so we've been very shadow banned.
Yeah. And that's why I feel like, making authentic connections is going to help. Like the collaborations, like to overcome that,
Yes.
Well, we're not just doing this to get paid. We actually believe in this mission. We're actually fighting.
But I'd like to. And I don't feel bad about that. And as Nina Turner says, just because we're progressive doesn't mean we take a vow of poverty.
No, absolutely not.
Thank you.
Absolutely
That's
not.
a great way of putting it.
But the reason we are doing it is because there is a mission. This isn't just let's just figure out how to make money off of people. I have to say him because he's the biggest scum of them all. Ben Shapiro on the right and David Pakman.
David Pakman. He has such a beef with David. He wants to basically.
I want to punch him in his vagina.
I've gone after him several videos, like a year ago when he came out in defense of Israel.
He's a Zio-Nazi of the upteenth degree, and he acts like he isn't.
He acts like he's not, right?
But I don't know if you know this or not. All the way back in 2017, he was one of the sons of bitches out there saying that we need to go into Venezuela and take over their country.
That's insane, dude.
He was regime change in Venezuela supporting.
It's like the world's most progressive liberal,
25%. The largest crude oil supply on the planet rests under Venezuela soil, and Maduro doesn't want to do business with us, and that is the only reason that we have a problem. That's it.
Yeah, I love when they defend empire like that. All the war crimes. It's just thank you for showing your whole ass, David Pakman.
Amen.
Yeah,
brother. Have a wonderful Christmas and New Year's.
Happy holidays.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.
I say happy solstice.
Happy solstice and happy solstice right back. And Festivus.
No,
never mind. No, we can't do that.
Festivus anymore.
Canceled. Festivus is canceled.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Rathbone.
Thank you. All right. Have a great night. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate you, brother.
Bye.
See you.
Bye-bye. So we are going to do one more segment.
That was fun.
Evening. Yes.
That was totally fun. He's great.
He is.
He had me at musician, right? Like from the very beginning. Like he had me from I'm a musician. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, the best.
Like that's all it takes, people. That was the best.
That was the best experience of watching, and it wasn't even that much. But
it was so.
Are you?
Oh my
God! You can't leave.
That was one of the I found that to be so entertaining. I found that to be so entertaining.
If there was a good fallout from Trump winning, it was watching Pac-Man have a conniption.
That was fun. And I don't know, also what's coming into close contention is watching Brian Stelter be talking about how this could happen to a CEO who's such a good family man. That's also a really good person that's talking about empire.
I've been on TV and I am trying to convince people that I am still a serious person and you will take me seriously.
Whenever you do him, I always think it's like Mr. Bill from SNL. That's what you sound like when you do Brian Stelter as Mr. Bill.
Well, I don't want to tell people what channel I actually get the impression from, but I just kind of picked it up and it just made a lot of sense because Brian Stelter is the human version of Martin Prince from The Simpsons. Like that's who he is.
I don't watch The Simpsons.
Yes. Well,
I don't have a frame of reference for that.
We have to get Norm Finkelstein back on the show.
Anything in particular? I mean, other than he's brilliant, but.
And another one who's in New York who could see exactly what's going on.
Wait. Why Norman Finkelstein right now?
In lieu of everything that's been going on. And we haven't talked to him in quite a while.
No, we haven't. I always feel like, okay. And I love him because he's brilliant and one of the smartest people for sure. But he's very cranky and he's got lots of reason to be cranky, kind of like how Bernie's cranky. And I get it. I get it. But I don't I always feel like I don't want to bother him. I feel like he has to talk about it so much. So then I think who is basically the opposite of Norman Finkelstein in that regard would be Gabor Mate. He's the sort of calming, very same position, same, policy, same politics, but completely opposite demeanors. I would love to have Gabor come on and I feel like he is the most soothing person to talk about trauma that could ever be.
Colin, hold the DWS clip for Thursday. We could play it then.
I'd love to talk to Scott Ritter. Do you have a connection to Scott Ritter?
Jamal is the one connection we have to him. So,
because I would love to talk to Scott Ritter.
You should message Jamal and ask him if Scott would
connect us to Scott, because I watch him all the time on both. He's another one that's always on Dialogue Works and on Judge Knapp.
Zaina with a good line. I have to watch Norman on double speed.
It's so funny. I like all of that, but I just feel like when he comes on, it's like we're interrupting something that is infinitely more important and thought-provoking than with whatever it is, and that he has to talk about it yet again. And I don't know.
Chip, thank you so much. The printing press was invented in 1440. It took 350 years before Tom Paine used it to institute democracy. Internet was invented in the 70s. We'll get revolution if we don't burn up the planet. Well,
that's a problem.
Yeah.
Well, here's what my thought about that is that ultimately at the end of the day, I think the planet will be fine. We will be gone. We will be extinct. The planet will cool over, freeze over, burn, recrust. I don't know. Whatever.
Do you want to try to get John Kiriakou back on?
We've had him. Yeah. I mean, we've had John Kiriakou before, but yeah, I always love to talk to John Kiriakou. I mean, yeah, anytime. But yeah, so I think the planet will ultimately be okay, but that we will be extinct. That's what I think. Because we're killing ourselves way faster than anything else.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And make sure you go to patreon.com for as little as $5 a month. You can become a supporter of our small but mighty channel.
Did you at least tell everybody to subscribe first? Because there could be new people here. If you're new here,
I think they are, but I've been constantly putting that out there. If you haven't subscribed, make sure that you do subscribe. Make sure that you click the bell. But
we should regroup when somebody leaves and be like, hi, if you're new here, welcome. Please hit the like button. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe.
Well, we got over 80 live stream viewers tonight.
So great. And guys, if you are new here, welcome to Generational Change. I'm Jen.
I'm Peter. And
we never did an intro. We no longer have an intro because that's
I couldn't because you were having your technical difficulties and I had to.
Oh my God. It was so frustrating. What was so weird is when I sat down, you know how when it comes up before you enter studio and you see yourself on the camera on the thing, it was showing me Colin's avatar for Jen Perelman, and it was
I saw that.
Yeah. And so then I'm like, okay, well, and then I was able to at least change the avatar so that it was me, but I couldn't figure out why the camera wasn't showing up in settings. And that's when Jason came in. And it always gets down to rebooting. But then once you do that, then this whole other,
Yes.
It's just, I'm not quite tech savvy.
Chuck, hopefully you're one of many. It does seem like this will become a more consistent thing going forward, which would be great. Jordan, we are extremely happy to see the growth that Status Quo has had over the past few months, but really over the past couple of weeks, it's absolutely exploded, and it couldn't happen to a better person or a better channel. And of course, Colin is our producer, and he, of course, is, I hope, directly benefiting from it as well. There's not a lot of good ones out there. I'm not going to be honest. We don't criticize people for doing what they choose to do in terms of how they want to go about making a living doing independent media. However, the ones that are doing it for the reasons that are hopefully going to affect change in a positive way, there is no one better than Status Quo. They're doing what needs to be done. And so if we're seeing some degree of material benefit as a result, I am extremely, Jen, as it well would say, is extremely appreciative of that sentiment. Thanks, Travers. I guess we have to thank. I'm not going to thank her for anything, but I guess you can do that if that's what you choose to do. And Chip, thank you very much. If you have an extra Logitech C920, I did not see that message, but yes, I could certainly use a better camera than I have now. So if you have an
and I was going to tell you, we can afford to get you a decent camera.
Well, that would be nice.
You can have you can have a camera.
But if Chip has an extra Logitech C920 and would like to make an in-kind contribution, it is certainly appreciated.
And we have some. Yes, I do. We got to support the Punch Up Pod, and I do love watching Pat and Lila. That's my Sunday Wednesday shtick, because they're Sunday Wednesday live streams, and they go kind of early for us because they go live 8 o'clock our time, and then they're done just in time for Tim Black to go live at 10. Because that's what I usually like when we're done. I go. That's what I go watch. Is I get on Tim Black's live stream. And and here's the thing, it's sad for me a little bit because I have like a lot of love for Tim Black, but oftentimes I feel like my love has gone somewhat unrequited.
Well, I can, Chip, thank you so much. It would obviously be tremendously appreciated. Please send the email to generationalchange@gmail.com. I will give you my new address in North Florida. I've got a light.
There's light.
There is light.
I know.
Kat Negrita agrees between you and Tim Black. That's where it's at.
And that's a really good compliment to me because like I'm such a fangirl for him. He's the only people that I support through Patreon are Breakthrough News, Tim Black, and Asher House. And which is completely unrelated, but he's an animal rescue and I friggin' love that guy. His videos make me happy every single day. So I support that. But Status Quo's always been its whole own thing. So not always, but for a very long time. But so, I loved him. I think he does great work. I like his voice. I think it's very important. And unfortunately, he doesn't want to coalesce and commingle and come on.
He doesn't want to commingle. He doesn't want to commingle with anybody.
He doesn't. And I know that's why I say I love him. I'm a supporter. I will always forward people there, but my love is unrequited and it is a little sad. That's how I feel.
We have to continue doing what we're doing.
I know.
The effort matters. Remember to smash that like button. Make sure to share. Make sure to subscribe. We'll agree to disagree on that.
Well, here's the thing. I don't really know much about OnlyFans other than just I know what it is. I've never been on it. I know what it is. I would suggest that I know that I don't take off my clothes in the pictures. Isn't that what the OnlyFans
Jen, do you want to get paid?
Not that badly, no.
Okay, then there you go. There's your answer.
I will show my feet though.
Oh,
I know that grosses you out, but I will show feet.
Okay, so Jen, find out email generationalchange@gmail.com and figure out how much you're going to be willing to pay. I ain't dealing with that. And on that note, you haven't seen me do this in a while, guys. So keep in mind.
Peter got a doobie. That's always so exciting when Peter gets a doobie. Who gave you a doobie? Don't say it. Don't say it.
I can't tell you that. I'm not going to let them get arrested.
Nobody's getting arrested, you square. Nobody arrests anybody for doobie. I want to know how that would even happen.
Well, now you're definitely not doing OnlyFans.
Well, I don't know any other. I'm telling you, I know what it is from. I do have a son who's, 24. So like, I understand what that is, but.
And Manwith, I will tell you, that's not surprising. In fact, I believe that the founder of Sans Site is, I don't know if he's Israeli, but I'm pretty sure he's Jewish.
And it wouldn't surprise me if Patreon is too. And quite honestly, right now, that's the only way that we have anything. And the facts are that I am not enough of a good enough business person. And this has never been our livelihood, that I have never spent that much effort and time sitting there and figuring out all that stuff. And honestly, it's just never something we've done.
True. Well, Tina Desiree Berg, John Farina, and of course, our good friend Steve Grumbine, who I think we should get back on here very soon, especially, have you seen?
See, now here's the thing. He is also righteously grumpy.
Yes.
But the difference is I feel like I'm friends enough with him where it's a comfortable thing. Whereas with Norman, it's like, we're not friends. I don't really know him that well. So his grumpiness is a little bit different.
That's
like
true.
With Grumbine, it's like, yeah, whatever.
Well, the reason we should have Steve back on soon is, did you see the recent documentary that Stephanie Kelton just had done?
No.
Okay. I'll send you the link. It's a very good movie. Okay. So
I want him to connect me with Jason Hickel. That's who I want to talk to. That's the person I really want to talk to very much right now. I read one of his books a long time ago. I actually am going to read a second one. Just, I feel like if I read them more, maybe I'll will it and he will eventually come on this show.
Make it so.
He's brilliant. Like, I understand why Steve fanboys over him.
Chip, I appreciate it, and I will forgive you from ordering it from Amazon because beggars can't.
You know what? I use Amazon. It is what it is. That's like people complaining that Bernie flew on an airplane.
No, that's not the same.
What are you talking about? Yes, it is. Amazon now is completely frigging ubiquitous. Not for everything, but for so many things. And honestly, it is the way it is. And we need to change it. It is not going to change it for me to not use Amazon. In fact, he has perfected the whole model of operating at a loss. So it's like at this point, that ship has sailed. That's what I think. Okay.
Well, Chip says that he sent it to you, so I will have to pick it up in about a week. Hopefully it'll be there. And in the meantime, I appreciate.
Do I have to get you another present since I bought you the toilet paper? I mean,
I've got toilet paper to last me probably 2 to 3 years.
Exactly, which is why I'm not going to give you the toilet paper that I bought you. We had to me, it felt like a gift of the Magi situation.
Well, it wasn't just the toilet paper. I ended up getting the whole shebang. I got the paper towels.
You did? I haven't tried them.
Well, the paper towels are okay.
Yeah. See, I don't know how I feel about that.
Tissues are good. And they also do, which I think are the best ones, the doggy bags.
What do you mean doggy bags?
Poop bags.
Oh, poop bags? That's what they make? Oh. Yeah. I have a lifetime supply of poop bags that I'm never using. Oh, we took Lou to go see the lights last night. Rachel and I did.
Was she happy?
Oh my God, she was so happy, because I had her in the front carrier and we walked all the way into the thing and the music started playing and she was like, she was so into it.
You're supposed to get a couple of pictures of that.
I have a few for you. And we also went to Flamingo Gardens and I have some pictures of you from there. I had butterfly.
All right, I'll have some Instagram posts to find.
I had a butterfly on my finger today. It was really cool.
Wait, a monarch?
A monarch.
Damn you.
I had a monarch.
I try that all the time. I try to get a monarch to land on my.
No, but this was in all fairness, they have this new thing at Flamingo Gardens. They have a butterfly pavilion. So it's like an aviary place. So they're pretty, I'm not saying it's like easy, but they were definitely all around. And I made a monarch friend.
That's
so I will give you some pictures. Okay. Will that make you happy? And there's pictures of me and
Great.
Lou at the Lights in the Acres.
All right. Yeah. Well, yes, but no. Thanks for checking in. The Simpsons, old school.
And I want to, and let me be clear, as somebody who is a proud member of Generation X, when I was in college, it was very customary on Monday evenings. I believe that was Simpsons nights, was Monday evenings.
No,
I believe, was it Wednesday? What was it? What was the night?
It went back and forth. It was Sunday, and then it got to Thursday, and then ultimately it settled on Sunday night.
Okay, so it was Sunday, not Monday night. Okay, but we went to, there was this awesome, like, Mexican, like, it was just this really great hole in the wall place in
I'm hungry
Boulder.
right now, so keep
whatever, in Boulder, Colorado, and everybody, that's where we went every week to watch The Simpsons, and everybody just had like margaritas and just sat and had chips and all this stuff. So I'm very familiar with The Simpsons. It is for my generation. I will acknowledge that. I am not an animated cartoon. I don't like it. I don't like that. I don't like South Park. I don't like Family Guy. I don't like that kind of stuff.
But I think it's interesting that you're talking about from like 19, it was like 1991, 1992, and that people would actually
we would go to yeah.
Well, the one thing you have to remember, guys, that
Garcia's on Pearl Street. We would go to Garcia's on Pearl Street.
I have a very good memory of being an 80s kid. And the one thing that I do remember is that even around 1991, 1992, remember a lot of people at that time still had TVs that only had the 13 dials. And in some cases, they had those funky antennas where you couldn't get a great signal. So you weren't even necessarily getting like a full clear color picture. So it would make sense that some people, especially if you're living in rural Colorado, that you would go to a sports bar or like a downtown restaurant place that would play it on that.
Okay, it wasn't rural. It was Boulder. Okay. I lived in Boulder.
Yes, but Boulder 30 years ago was a significantly different place than it is today.
It was so good.
I'm sure it was.
So good. And then all the Californians came, sorry, Colin, and ruined friggin' everything. But anyway, so yeah, we did. People were into watching The Simpsons. I didn't really watch. I'm being honest. I went because it was, like happy hour at Garcia's.
Hold on. Did you even enjoy the Marge versus the Monorail episode when Leonard Nimoy
I couldn't tell you any episodes because I was at Garcia's drinking margaritas and having chips and salsa. Okay. With whatever ID or whatever means I was able to use to get myself in
late and let us know that we are dividing by generations. It is a stereotype. We cannot do that. Not allowed.
And you know what? As soon as I could claim being Gen X as a protected class, we'll be able to have that entire discussion.
Smash that like button, share, subscribe, do all those things we ask you to do. We love you.
What do we have coming up?
On Thursday, we are planning to speak with friend of the show, Janine Yanis, who was a guest before. We'll be talking about Syria and all things going on there. If there is additional reports to talk about pertaining to Mr. Mangione, we will obviously address that as well.
Are you going to ever just say his name like a normal name? Like, do you think you're ever, like, could you, like, seriously?
Yeah. You're asking me if I remember the episode where Lawrence Tierney was the guest star.
Oh, for the love of all that is holy. Are you still talking about The Simpsons?
Of course I am. And the second guest episode of Leonard Nimoy talks about whether or not UFOs are true or false. I'm telling you, it's great.
You know what? Here's the thing. I only have one show that I'm like lifetime committed to. Right? No, that just ended. It's the finale was yesterday. I mean, I do love me some Yellowstone. I mean,
but now they're apparently they're doing like a spin-off.
They're doing they've done a couple of spin-offs. I didn't really get into the 1923. I did watch the 1883 was awesome. The 1923 I couldn't get into it. I might need to force myself because now they're doing a second season. But they are supposedly there's going to be a spin-off. But I want to say, first of all, Beth Dutton is my spirit animal. I love her. Like, honestly, like that she's fire. No, my show is Days of Our Lives. And I do appreciate that there is a certain amount of like lunacy and that I watch Days of Our Lives, but I do.
I hate to admit this, Henry. And yes, I did watch The Critic and yes, it was funny. And yes, the guest episode crossover with The Simpsons was funny. John Lovitz is very funny. However,
However,
he is
However.
a raging Zionist. So
problem.
Can't be forgiven.
Everything's different now. Like I feel like so many things are basically getting ruined for me.
It is.
Everything's getting ruined for me. It's like it's not. Yeah.
It was. And so there you go. So thank you all. Smash that like button. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you share. We're going to give you the heads up right now, even though it's a week away. Next Monday on Christmas Eve, we will have the return.
We call it Erev Christmas Eve.
I can't call it the other thing that I want to call it because you hate me.
No, because we are no longer Happy Solstice.
Our new version of the Estivus that we will now have.
The anti-Festivus.
We're going to have it with somebody that I think you'll all like and appreciate, which of course is Butch Ware. He will be coming back, and that'll be a great conversation. Probably will be earlier. There may be a surprise. I'll be working on that. We'll see. In the meantime, smash that like button, share, subscribe, do all those things we ask you to do. We appreciate you all, and we'll see you Thursday.
And free Palestine.
Free Palestine.